Welcome back to the Poor Proles Almanac, sponsored by ivermectin. I say ivermectin. Death toll of 1 so far. I wonder how high it will go. How you guys doing today?
That's a bit of a rough statistic to open the episode on.
Yeah, I mean, by the time this comes out, the list might be much higher. But for now, we're at 1. We're all sitting here enjoying a lovely snowstorm, even though this is coming out in, I think, June or something like that. And yeah, it's part 2 of Iceland. So hopefully you guys, in honor of the cold country of Iceland that is full of ice, as Elliot told me, and I will not be taking questions on that, we'll be talking about a fun part of history where we all, probably everyone listening to this was alive, but doesn't know about it.
I mean, they might know about it. And also, I wish we had recorded this sooner. This is my fault because I couldn't finish the episode. It took me forever. But if we had gotten this out sooner, it would be very topical as to what's going on right now.
Yeah.
With ivermectin?
No.
Oh, SVT, yeah.
Yeah,
that's
the
important,
whole
I guess.
banking collapse that we're sitting on the edge
Like
of.
it's happening. It's
Oh my
happening
God.
again.
I'm going to be so mad if this comes out and like a bunch of banks already failed and a bunch of people start already talking about it. So like in future, people don't record an episode about Iceland so that way we're the first.
Or, look at it from the other side. Maybe look this as this next episode is an instruction manual.
Or hear me out, Dom. Edit this like 4 months early, and then just in case we need it, just drop that. We can drop that shit. Sorry, buddy. Putting you on the hot seat.
Thanks, Dom.
Yeah, just like that.
Thanks, Dom.
Anyway, so the last episode, we left off with Iceland making some changes in the early 90s, 91 through 97. They had done some crazy stuff with fishing permits and really made things not so good. They had like a halfway membership to the European Union, and they started to sort of outsource capital and labor. So that's fun. In 97, they came out with the new tax rate and started to do capital gain tax at a flat 10%.
Ah, yes.
So that's also fun.
I love the fishing to flat tax trajectory. You see it coming every time. Once you see the fishing regulations, you just know where you're going to be in 10 years. Flat tax, Mitt Romney.
I mean, that's kind of true, isn't it?
It is. Somehow it is true, and that's disconcerting.
Well, next up, we'll couple all of this with debt accumulation and privatization.
Ah, yes.
Hell yeah.
It gets better.
That's what we love to hear.
It gets better.
Yeah, this is what we're all about here.
Between 1998 and 2003, the Icelandic government put some major privatization projects in motion. The Independence Party, still led by PM Oddsson at this time, sold several state organizations, including some large production and construction companies. The National Telecom of Iceland, which was the broadcasting station, and all of the major financial organizations, including those big 3 banks that we had mentioned earlier.
Love to see it.
Right. So the large-scale privatization expanded opportunities for business entrepreneurs in Iceland. Domestic and foreign capital was now available to borrow from. Icelandic investors now operated in a global financial market, and released from state restraint, the newly privatized banks grew enormously by investing in companies abroad, thus becoming international enterprises and entities.
Cool.
By the end of 2003, total assets of the banks amounted to 174% of Iceland's gross domestic product. By 2005, it was up to 376%. Market value of companies listed on the Icelandic Stock Exchange grew 25-fold between 96 and 2006 during that decade, with companies and corporations becoming investment companies or hedge funds without even changing their names.
And didn't you have like a fun name for these like finance bros? These Icelandic dudes?
Yeah, the business Vikings.
Business Vikings.
The Outvasion Vikings.
Yeah. Oh man, you just knew it was going to go well with that.
What could go wrong with the idea of like business bros being like, you know what? I have a half-assed understanding of Viking culture. Let's apply it inappropriately.
These guys did only good things, I'm pretty sure.
It would be a lot easier to do banking with a banker if they were covered in blood and had like dual-wielding axes or something.
The Wolf of Wall Street.
Nice.
You look like you want to add to that, Matt. Come on.
No, I'm just gonna let that one stew for our listeners.
Stew like your rabbit.
We'll get there.
I should have.
We'll get there.
You should have. Sorry, we were talking about Matt's rabbit recipes
earlier.
Yeah. Oh, you got some good ones?
And
Well, no, I have a bad one
You're-
I
Still learning. Still learning.
when I killed my rabbits, I tried to roast them, and it turned out bad.
It
Dear listeners,
was not Wolf of Wall Street.
no, not at all. It was very What are you saying, Wolf?
It was like the big shark,
The big shark?
like the big short, the big
Oh.
shark.
The big shark. Nice.
Sounds like you used to.
Someone
it sounds like you used to work for
appreciates
Nickelodeon. It's weird.
I wish I did. That'd be a great job for me.
Yeah, that place is
Nickelodeon
that place
still around?
Yeah, they are, and they probably would love to have you.
Did you know I watched a documentary about Well, I don't know if it was a documentary. It was like a TikTok, maybe. Same thing.
Wow. It's quite the downstep there. It's like, no, I think I read it. No, it wasn't a TikTok.
Let's be honest. Everyone that says I read a thing, it was TikTok.
He calls himself a celebrity now because he has a podcast, so that fits.
Yeah. So there's, I think he was like a producer for Nickelodeon at some point, but he was talking about how it was a big like tourist spot. So even when they were like off, not filming anything, they had to pretend that they were in the middle of filming stuff for the people that were coming through on tour, and they had to like fake recording stuff so that like all the kids that were like walking through thought like, when am I going to be on TV? And they'd have to like pretend, oh yeah, we'll let you know, it'll be aired soon, and they would like just not give them any specifics about it. So yeah, that was my fun fact about Nickelodeon. Very
Devious.
relatable to our conversation about Iceland.
I feel like we just stumbled into the corner where your uncle's drunk at like a Christmas party, and we just listened to one of his stories.
I mean, that's how my brain works. Like this is how you end up with a 15 episode series on bees.
Yeah.
So,
oh yeah. You're not here for Uncle Andy's drunk ramblings.
I think this is a moment of clarity. I've been the drunk uncle.
The drunk.
I got to get the hell out of here.
Oh,
Can't
man.
two drunk uncles. It doesn't end well.
All right, so back to Iceland.
Speaking of drunk uncles, sober uncles. Remember, they had
Very
no
sober
booze at
uncles.
this time.
Yes, very, very sobering
No,
society.
they had booze by now.
Not 98. I
think
think it
beer was still illegal.
Mid 2000s.
Oh man, my bad.
So with all of these changes comes the emergence of a new social class, a financial elite that was captured by Icelandic media and the press that frequently showed its success and conspicuous consumption. The leaders of this outvasion were managers and major shareholders in banks. They were obviously extremely well rewarded, and one of Iceland's financial moguls, here's a good one, Björgulfur Thor, became the first Icelander to appear on Forbes magazine's list of the world's wealthiest people.
Which only leads to good things for your country.
Yeah, truly. Okay.
Also, it turns out beer was legal in 1989.
I was just gonna say.
God damn it, Matt. Get out of my space.
So
But you can say more about beer if you want. Sorry, Elliot.
they had those amateur drunks that I was talking about earlier, like where they're not good at it yet. Like they're like still learning how to be drunks because it's like still new, you know. Everybody's all nice to them and stuff.
They've got their training wheels on for the Vikings.
Yeah. Anyway,
anyway,
I just gotta it's just such a funny image in my head as like amateur like drunks. Like I don't know. I just think it's funny. I would watch that show.
But they're like 80 years
There's
old.
no seniority.
Or there's like one master drunk who's like, let me show you how to get more drunk. Like, I don't know. It's fun. At this time, we see Iceland's very own subculture of super rich emerge. The access to cash combined with fierce internal competition between the new elite made for constant raising of stakes. So they were always trying to outdo each other, being the most ballinest person ever, which, I mean, let's be honest, if you had too much money and didn't know what to do with it, you'd do the same thing.
There would.
I mean, I would.
There would be signs.
I'll speak for myself. Maybe you guys wouldn't, but I would. I'm not a good person. As regular, ordinary Icelandic folk felt.
New bumper sticker idea.
That's it,
Matt.
Mhm.
I'm not a good person.
You guys do you. You guys do you. I'll speak for myself. Not a good person.
This week's episode sponsored by Elliot. He's not a good person.
That's right. I'll run on that. I'll win too.
You probably would.
As regular, ordinary Icelandic folk felt
I'd
their
put up the lawn sign.
Yeah, it'd be awesome. As regular, ordinary Icelandic folk felt their standard of living rising every year, so too did their expectations and goals. Iceland's GDP increased 10% annually in the mid-2000s, and the buying power of disposable income rose annually by about 4 to 8%. The influx of foreign capital into the Icelandic economy strengthened the exchange rate of the krona, which in turn lowered the cost of imported products and bolstered the public's buying power, both domestically and abroad. Now that banks could secure access to loans on the international banking market, they offered individuals and businesses in Iceland easy access to short term loans. All parts of the economy were pumping, prices of real estate took off, as well as ramping up the construction industry. Companies and owners of capital, along with the general public, all wanted to use their position to access more credit and invest. Individuals and households began to accumulate debt to keep up with the Joneses. In the years running up to the crisis, the total Icelandic household debt pretty much doubled. And looking back on some stats, the book has a quote that highlights this. End quote.
Give us that quote.
Illustrative of excess is that in 2007, more luxury Range Rovers were sold in Iceland than in Denmark and Sweden combined. The money supply increased by up to half each year, and house prices doubled in only a few years, while the rise in real wages lagged behind. Iceland was clearly living well beyond its means. Capital inflow is driving the whole economy, with both asset prices and currency rising way beyond their underlying values. End quote.
Sounds like a recipe for success.
Yeah, you had a whole lot going on there. Everything looks like it's going to be great forever, I guess. Like just that constant, that steady increase in returns, that return in investment. People love to see those big numbers.
Yeah, I mean, what could go wrong when you're just spending cash on short-term things that don't hold any value?
As its real value is the bottom is about to fall out from under it, which is horrifying.
Speaking of the bottom falling out of something, Matt.
Time for a Raytheon ad?
It might be, although maybe we have a nice Icelandic Range Rover ad or something. Or actually, this episode is sponsored by SVT. Or is SVB?
Oh, yeah, Silicon Valley Bank, yeah.
SVB.
Yes, SVB. Yes, this episode is sponsored by SVB. Go put your money in it. You won't get it back.
I thought we were going to do like snow tires or something.
Here at the Raytheon Technologies Corporation, we believe children are the future, just not the ones on the other end of our products. Like our RIM-7 Sea Sparrow anti-aircraft missile system, the most environmentally friendly anti-aircraft missile produced anywhere today. We're mindful of our environmental legacy here, which is why today we're introducing a new line of pollinator-friendly Stinger missiles. This lightweight, portable system includes a native wildflower mix that scatters upon impact. You're welcome, bees. Raytheon. Pack a punch, plant a bunch.
All right, welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that episode and invested all of your money in FDIC-backed banks that are questionably stable because we live in America and the government doesn't actually do the things it says it's going to do. And we're all just kind of okay with that. How do you feel about that, Matt?
You know, I don't love it. I wish, I don't know. It's just like with the Amtrak thing. The whole reason that our trains are shitty is just Amtrak can't enforce anything.
Yeah, just like Eversource or any energy company, and you lose power like every time there's like a gust of wind, because why not?
Why not?
How you doing, Elliot?
I'm good. I was just trying to read some fine print here from my bank where it says, you know, FDIC and
go fuck
it
yourself.
says FDIC insured, like you'll get your money, but just fucking don't come all at once, you poor assholes.
we know you don't have 250 grand anyway, so fuck off. Yeah, so speaking of fucking off, let's talk about these brilliant minds behind this explosion, we'll call it, of Icelandic wealth.
Sure. So the downside for the general public that was unaware at the time was that the domestic and foreign investment and increased buying power among them was driven by an accumulation of national debt. When the banks and other investment companies began to invest internationally, they began to accumulate foreign debt and investments expanded. The national debt became enormous relative to the size of the Icelandic economy. Wow, this really does have that American too big to fail vibe. I can just like taste it. It's like a bad, like metallic taste in my mouth. Sort of like I'm at the gates of hell.
Elliot, you gotta stop chewing those gum batteries.
Do you think since the Industrial Revolution, there's more layers to hell now, like in Dante's Inferno?
I mean, you got to put all that seasoned workers to work, right?
I mean, there's like, do you think there's hell bureaucracy? Like,
Oh, absolutely. There's a show about that. It's actually hilarious.
Yeah.
It's called
wait, there
yeah,
is?
it's called Your Pretty Face is Going to Hell, and it's hilarious.
Huh.
I have not heard of it.
Yep, it's on Adult Swim.
Cool. That sounds
Yeah,
fun.
good stuff.
Good stuff. Not at all realistic or practical, but if America has anything to say about it, that is what hell will look like.
Yep, run by a white guy. I don't know what else to tell you.
Love it.
All right, so tell us about how sustainable this is. On a scale of like 1 to Enron, how likely are we to see this not end well?
Enron, like it's pretty much
Fuck.
just like that. No, no, it's not. We'll get there. We'll get there. So this is where things get real fun with the warning signs of unsustainability. It's not sustainable.
Fun,
right?
We're going with
Yeah.
yes, fun.
So the amount of credit granted in the private sector by deposit money banks and other credit institutions, viewed as a ratio to Iceland's GDP at the time, saw credit rise 100% between 95 and 2002. After the banks were completely privatized in 2003, accumulation of credit rose exponentially. By 2005, it had grown by more than 300% since 95. And the following year, it had grown by, again, 500%.
Oh, I love that.
By 2005, Iceland was the world's most heavily in debt economies.
What could go wrong?
They did that like real fast.
Move over, Greece. We got this.
Oh, Greece. Oh, okay, so the Greek economy like toppled like shortly after this, and like they had some riots too. But the reason I wanted to do this episode about Iceland was because it was like the first one to like the first domino, and it was such a small country to have it happen to. Where when you put it to scale on like the larger companies, it's like if that's what it looks like when Iceland fell, like imagine the U.S. Like ooh, scary.
And there's a lot you can unpack about Greece, and I'm not at all prepared to talk about it, but
add it to the list.
A list.
Add it to the list. But Greece was a really interesting story from a financial perspective for a number of reasons. And a big part of why it failed after like trying to get out of the mess was because of the IMF. And they actually had like their prime minister is pretty left leaning and fought tooth and nail against the IMF for what they were trying to make Greece do, which kept the country permanently in debt. But yeah, we should probably put it on the list because it is a really interesting story if you're not familiar with it. Matt, are you familiar with Greece?
I just wanted to learn how to grow a tomato, dude. It's fucked up.
Yep. Welcome to hell.
National debt this, IMF that. I wanted, I just wanted some sheep. I wanted an apple tree. Maybe.
Goddamn colonist.
Jesus Christ.
Well, listen, I'm going to get more drunk and you'll learn all of that at the end of my story here, okay? I'm your favorite drunk uncle. Say it.
Say it.
Say it.
Oh, you're my favorite drunkle.
All right, we can continue. Although this financial expansion was unsustainable, the people leading it had no incentive to slow it down. They had strong incentives to stay the course, in fact. The accumulation of national debt did not stop bank managers and owners of banks from continuing their aggressive investment strategies. The Icelandic authorities did nothing to restrain or warn banks in any significant way. And the banks just kept growing and growing and growing until in August of 2008, their total assets amounted to 865% of Iceland's gross domestic product. In size, banks had grown ninefold in 5 years. And in an unsurprising discovery, a major share of the total lending by all the banks was to their largest owners and related parties, a trend that became more pronounced in the culminating years and months leading up to the bank collapse. So they were lending to themselves, like they had a whole bunch of debt.
Yeah, so they basically were like, oh, this
Andy,
cheap
I think
credit.
something's going on with your audio.
Yeah, maybe Bluetooth.
Yeah, just got the stupid Apple headphones that...
Okay, we should cut this out, but I was thinking about Bluetooth the other day, and like all the like such intricate technology and like such rare materials to make such tiny little micro, what they're called, tiny little like things just to get rid of one wire. We didn't like the wires around our head that much that we had.
I mean, people complain about wires to this day, and there's considerably less of them than there were when I was growing up.
Can you hear me now?
Can't hear you, bud. Also, isn't the Bluetooth symbol like a make-believe Viking?
Can you hear me?
Viking rune. There you go. We got you.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was Harold Bluetooth's rune.
Fucking Harold Bluetooth.
Harold Bluetooth?
I assume you made that up. Is it not Harold
No,
Bluetooth?
Harold Bluetooth, dude. I've been playing Civ 5. He's the leader of the Danish. No, Harold Bluetooth. He's like a
obviously
famous.
that
He was a
Harold.
king of Denmark and Norway.
Yeah.
So
Isn't
put some respect
wait,
on his name.
no,
Is this-
seriously, that's what the Bluetooth symbol is, though. It's his shit.
Yeah.
Hold on. So I want to back up though, because you made a really interesting point about like we wanted wireless stuff. We didn't want wireless shit. Apple told us we wanted wireless shit and then sold us back the thing that the wire did the most importantly, which is making sure we didn't lose our fucking headphones or making it easy to connect to
Yeah,
stuff.
they had tethers.
Like,
tethers for your AirPod, which is just wires.
Yeah. And like that's the thing about like capitalism though, right? Like that it tells us that it engineered things for us that we never wanted and said, well, you wanted it. And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, it's kind of cool, but no one was like, oh, you know what we need? Fucking chargeable headphones. So that way when we're in the middle of something and it dies, we have to take them out and plug them into the wall as opposed to just plugging it into my fucking phone or whatever. That is my argument. And I stand on that.
Life is good.
Life is good.
We got some tech junkies that just want to put that shit in their head and connect it to their brain battery and make it work all the time.
Yeah.
Good luck.
That cyberpunk shit.
There's no amount of money you could pay me to connect something to my body that was a machine, especially a one that is like
you heard it here first.
proprietary.
Andy doesn't want life
You're
support.
an idiot because my back is junk and I can't wait to get a robot spine.
Oh, Jesus
Like
Christ. What is going
Dr.
on?
Octopus from Spider-Man. Isn't that what he had?
Yeah.
Doc Ock?
It was a little more than a spine. It was fully like legs.
Didn't he have like
You'd
arms?
punch. You did a lot of
Yeah.
punching.
Yeah, those are just extra arms and stuff, but
It's extra spine.
it was just
Yeah.
extra spine he could move.
Yeah.
That's just what your arms and legs are anyway, right?
Super spines. Unlike these businessmen who
Are we
had
recording?
no
What the-
spine,
what
but
the
balls,
fuck are we
Yeah.
doing?
Good.
balls of steel to take money, take cheap credit, loan it to themselves after privatizing the public government's bank, and then just being like, I guess we borrowed 800% against what we had 7 years ago. What could go wrong? As we've said repeatedly.
Genius.
Genius.
It's sheer genius. So the state did nothing about all of this, and the media sold pseudo success stories that kept the Icelandic people lulled in their austerity. The Icelandic media did not do much to raise any concerns or questions or come up with theories about the growing national debt, and instead delivered celebratory news about Icelandic banks and holding companies buying up companies and banks overseas. The National Broadcasting Service concluded its evening news by reporting the values of the Dow Jones and other major stock market indexes, all in the green. With a few exceptions, Icelandic intellectuals and political commentators expressed little concern about the way things were going. And this is where we see the coming of the term business Viking appear.
Hell yeah.
The Viking metaphor references the unique qualities of Icelanders with the national and cultural roots to point out the unique qualities that come from cultural heritage that made the Icelandic entrepreneurs aggressive with innovative strategies that gave them a superior advantage over non-Vikings in the financial markets.
Because, being a Viking definitely makes you more qualified for a business takeover.
I mean, like I said, covered in blood, dual-wielding axes. Like, it makes sense.
Yeah. Tripping on shrooms.
I feel like I don't remember that. Yeah. I feel like if that happened on Wall Street, we would have noticed. But, I mean,
it does every day. We just can't see that high into those fucking windows. Why do you think they make the building so high?
That's
so true, dude.
The axes.
We do not know what's going on behind those closed doors.
Yeah, so it is really interesting that this is how they were presenting it and that they tied it into this like nationalistic thing. And also, I do think it's worth pointing out that like national debt isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think we're very like in the US, we always end up talking about the national debt being like this huge issue or non-issue, and it's a kind of issue. Like it's not necessarily a bad thing as long as it's investing in good things. Like if we were to rebuild our infrastructure in the United States, like that is a net good, and it would cost us a massive amount of debt. but like it would pay off because our cars would stop breaking so much. We would probably drive less and we wouldn't burn the planet and ourselves alive. So seems like a trade-off to me.
Yeah, but I don't know. I like my car. I kind of want to burn myself to death, Andy.
That's a you problem, not a me problem. You do what you want to
No,
do.
I'm just kidding.
But yeah, I think if Iceland was a bigger country, this like whole like cultural nationalistic thing could have gotten like really scary.
Andy, when has nationalism ever gotten scary? Are you kidding me?
It never ends poorly.
Right.
Just ask every country on Earth.
Oh, man. Well, what happened next, Elliot?
Yeah, tell us how this ends, and with a rainbow and some Care Bears or some shit.
Sure. We'll try to wrap it up. With the state authorities eager to associate themselves with all this economic success and the miracle that was happening with the economy, despite the accumulation of national debt taking place in the mid 2000s, the state encouraged and supported the ongoing expansion of the financial sector. And in 2006, a government appointed committee led by a top manager of one of the big three banks in Iceland concluded that things would continue to be awesome if the state authorities created a fruitful environment for financial business. This combination of uncritical acceptance from the state, media, and the public once again lulled the Icelandic citizens into a false sense of security while living in an illusion.
In their defense, it was a pretty sweet illusion.
I mean, it was pretty awesome. Your
Yeah.
annual income's doubling every year.
You got your Range Rover.
Yeah, everything is going up in value. And
You've got more Range Rovers than Denmark. Like, you know you're doing something
Yeah.
right.
You personally have more Range Rovers than Denmark.
Everyone personally. Okay, this is where we enter the angry leftist. Andy, get start clapping. Do something.
Get mad.
My Molotov is right here. I'm waiting.
Well,
Let's
holy
do
shit, it is. He just held it up.
Oh my god, Andy, put that out.
No.
Left.
It's snowing out. I need to be warm.
Yeah, it is. It's snowing
So
pretty
true.
good. Left-wing criticism was around in the 90s and 2000s with some left-wing politicians, social critics, and intellectuals criticizing how neoliberal policies like the 10% flat capital tax gain and some other things led to more social inequality and a weakened welfare state. The perception that Iceland was a country with great social equality was beginning to fade as top earners were leaving the general public in the dust in terms of annual income. The critical voices often pointed fingers at the Independence Party and its strongman leader, Prime Minister Oddsson.
Oddsson.
In 1999, a new left showed up, adding to Iceland's political debate. And socialists, environmentalists, and feminists formed an alliance and founded the Left Green movement, replacing the traditional Socialist Party. In the early 2000s, they took 10% of the Icelandic voters and expressed a new kind of leftist discontent in the parliament. This led to a rise in activism with a group called Saving Iceland, organizing and putting on street protests against the destruction of the Icelandic environment with the government-led construction of hydroelectric plants and aluminum smelters. This gained very little public attention and support at the time, but the protest vibe was starting to kind of permeate through the air in those early 2000s.
Yeah, I think that's like one of those things in retrospect, you're like, oh yeah, I think they were onto something. But like at the time, you're like, look at these fucking idiots. They don't know shit about business. That's why we have these business Vikings. They know business. Why would you take any advice from these kids? Because it's always kids whenever there's protests. They always just blame the kids.
Yeah, well, they're the ones that are angry and don't have business Viking jobs, you know?
I want my business Viking job. Do I get to wear the hat? The helmet?
Only on casual Fridays.
They don't make anything. They take everything, Andy. You're not a Viking if you have to ask
So
for
I'm
it.
going to take my helmet and challenge my sheep to a headbutting contest.
That sounds like TikTok content.
I will lose terribly.
Mm.
You heard it here, folks.
Or obituary content.
That too.
Or that.
He'll have the first iPad gravestone. It's just that video playing over and over again for all of eternity.
Oh man.
It was worth it. So yeah, I think this is not a surprise that there was some piece of reactionary leftism that, and I don't say that disparagingly, but just that like people are finally responding back to this. It is kind of interesting that they did focus on this like eco-green left movement in particular, because we've been focusing primarily on like the fact that this was all fictional cash, that it was, you know, these banks and things like that that are, you know, creating new debts in order to access cash. And the angle that the left took was this green left kind of eco-socialism, which isn't bad, but just it's a unique choice given the context.
I just feel like it's an exact opposition to what they're trying to fight. I feel like it's a weird social thing. I don't know, you know?
It's like the bottom left, top right kind of thing.
Like it's got to, like, opposites have to be opposites.
They have to be completely diametric.
Yeah, yes, that's the word I was looking for. So at this time was another oppositional discourse emerging. People started to comment on political corruption and power consolidation that was allegedly associated with ruling parties. Despite the emphasis on free market capitalism, the independents and progressive parties were accused of old boy nepotism having a huge influence on their politics. In the 2000s, there were a few instances that shined a light on this. Firstly, when the banks were privatized, there were accusations made that leaders of the two ruling parties had intervened in the privatization of 2 out of the 3 banks, Landsbanken and Koping Bank. Critics argued that political favoritism had influenced the choice of prospective buyers of these banks. And in a rare gesture of protest, the chairman of the privatization committee resigned from his seat during the process.
I mean, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so he backed down because it was like a bad look for everybody, and probably couldn't deny it. So
he's like, fucking him out. Or did he do like the Homer Simpson thing where he like
slowly faded into
leaned
the bushes?
Into the bush?
I'm guessing it was the Homer thing. I actually don't know. I did not find that in my research. Now I feel like I failed.
You mean in your research you didn't find out if he did the Homer thing? Are you kidding me?
No, I should.
Or if he did the Quagmire thing, where have you seen the Quagmire one? Where he like slides under the table and then like out the window or something like that? Yeah, that's a good one too.
Are you sure they didn't say he did that, Elliot? Can you do you have the sources linked?
Listen,
Can we check?
Listen, guys, I'll write down your questions and I'll research them and follow up with you, okay? I use that answer at work all the time, so I'm just going to use it with you guys here. I'm never going to talk to you again.
I'll get back to you.
So back to the political tampering. Cases of political hiring were put under scrutiny during the mid-2000s as well. The district court and Supreme Court judges were hired seemingly due to their political affiliations with the Independence Party, and on 2 occasions it was claimed that kinship connections with the party's leader, again PM Oddsson, influenced the appointing process itself.
That is some real like financial Viking shit. That's like,
yeah, I just took over this village. It goes to my brother, even though he wasn't even here.
Yeah.
Very Viking. Oddsson was...
Is this racist?
What's that?
That is a question I have. I said, is this racist? Can you be racist against Icelandic people?
They're not actual Vikings, so I'm just joking.
Is that the sticker?
Is that insulting to Icelandic people?
Is this racist?
To say that they're not actual Vikings? Like, come on.
I mean, are they not, technically? I mean, Vikings are not like a genetic grouping.
It was a profession.
Listen, I don't know
not
the
like
rules.
A race.
I don't know the rules. If I've offended anybody want to come over here, make the square, we can settle it up.
Just for the record, as a black man, you don't get to be racist very often, so this is your
I'm welcome to all challenges. Bring it.
And just for any potential challengers that's going to come face Elliot, he's packing.
And he's also got a mohawk now, so there's that too.
No, we'll do this the Viking way. I already cut my hair for it.
Yeah, true.
So, cases of political... Oddsson was appointed chairman of the board of governors of the central bank in 2005 after stepping down as prime minister in 2004. He got a sweet job after.
Doesn't happen here, at least.
No, not at all. This all spurred widespread criticism of unprofessionalism in the Icelandic government, however.
No.
Again, never happens here, fortunately.
You leave government and then go lead a bank?
Have you heard about the guy from Rhode Island?
Which one?
There's like 5 guys in Rhode Island. You're going to have to be more specific.
Buddy Cianci.
No, Cicilline, is that it? Who left I think he was a senator in Rhode Island, and he got a job with a nonprofit making $600,000 a year.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
There's no profits to be had.
That is the most Rhode Island thing I've ever heard, and I'm sorry for everyone who lives in Rhode Island, but you know this. Like, this is not news to you, that Rhode Island is by far the most corrupt state in maybe the world. It's really impressive with that. And the fact that we keep electing terrible people like Buddy Cianci, who went to prison, and then he was the mayor after he got out of prison, right?
Yeah.
Or did he almost won? I can't remember.
As far as corrupt people go, he was all right.
As far as that is our new bumper
Yeah.
sticker. As far as corrupt people go,
He's all right.
he is all right.
Anyway, we apologize to both of our Rhode Island listeners.
I think I know both of them, so it's fine. These concerns were a natural part of political discourse, but there were also clear warning indicators that were missed and ignored by the banks and the Icelandic authorities about 2 years prior to the banking collapse. In early 2006, the Icelandic banks had a hiccup with serious difficulty securing funds to provide short-term loans in the financial markets. This setback did not halt or inspire introspection, and instead of soft-pedaling the financial expansion and debt accumulation, the banks found novel ways to raise funds by initiating high-interest depositing schemes in other countries. Landsbanken opened branches in the UK and Netherlands and launched a savings scheme under the name IceSave. And using allowances by the European single market passport regulations, the bank operated like a domestic bank in these countries and collected deposits via high interest based savings accounts. So, what they did was they took all these savings, and however the European single market passport works, it allows these countries that are close together to operate banks as if they're domestic banks. And then they took all of these high deposits, and all of these funds that were in the savings account were tied to the krona. They were all backed by the krona. So that's why that's huge, because these were currency loans. And I think I mentioned this in the first part, but these loans that specifically are the currency loans that I was talking about, all of this money is backed by the krona.
Yeah, so the IceSave, the way I understood it was, it's basically they were like, hey, we're going to give people high interest rates, higher than any other bank. So everyone gives them money to put in the bank, like a savings account that pays 4%. And then they use that to cover their cash flow.
Correct.
Because they didn't have any cash. So it was basically like a liquidity crisis. And they sucked all this money from other countries that had cash and used that to keep things going, saying, we'll figure out how to fucking pay this high interest rate like at another time. But people are not going to pull out their money because they're not going to get a better rate anywhere else.
Exactly.
Also, look, like going into it, I didn't have high hopes for like Landsbanken in terms of like creativity, but IceSave, what a terrible fucking name for a program.
Listen, if you need to save a lot of ice.
I don't know. It was probably pretty topical. The iPhone probably just came out right around then. And if they spelled it with a lowercase I, like probably get a cease and desist, but you're getting some money though.
IceSave, you could do Ice Market if you want to nationalize like the grocery stores. You could do, what else can we do, Matt? Tell me. Ice Fish for your local nationalist fish, because obviously these people are only eating Icelandic fish at this point. What else we got? Come on, guys. Ideas. Be my idea man, Matt. Hype me up.
I think IceSave as a name is just dead on arrival. Well, it clearly wasn't, because clearly a lot of people put their money into
I'm
this.
literally trying to picture. I'm
Ice
trying to
Power.
picture the whiteboard, and if that's the one that made it through, it's not looking good.
Yeah.
I can't even say I'm on the air right now.
Jesus, I mean, like, I don't know. They had like
Ice
all
Road.
this like money flying around the financial sector. They can't hire like one person to do like an afternoon of brainstorming and come up with something better than IceSave. Landsbank, I'm gonna say Landsbanken dropped the ball on that one.
I'm shocked that a bank that's called Landsbanken was not creative with their name.
Yeah,
Right.
I was gonna say something disparaging about Vikings, and I stopped. So,
But if you want to hear disparaging things about Vikings, listen to this commercial. Hey folks, thanks for listening. This is Andy from the Poor Proles Almanac. Hopefully you're enjoying the podcast so far, and right now I'm talking to you from a commercial in a Poor Proles Almanac podcast. I'm sure you're enjoying the show and maybe even enjoying some of our ridiculous ads. We are able to keep our episodes ad-free and keep the lights on here because of support from listeners like you. If you think we're adding valuable perspective to the subjects of agriculture, ecology, climate change, and politics, then please consider giving us some support on Venmo, Ko-Fi, Patreon, or PayPal, all of which can be found at our website, poorproles.com. Please, don't make me go to Jeff for money.
Jeffrey Bezos. Jeffrey
And we are back for the last part of this riveting story. We haven't even gotten to the actual collapse yet. That is the good part.
Warming up.
Because we're building our way up. Elliot is master storytelling us to the brink. It's like edging. Ice edging.
Oh my
Oh
god,
my
no.
god. Do we trigger warning? I think we should have trigger warning.
Yeah, just stick that up the top. I was thinking, do you guys remember that like JG Wentworth commercial with
J.G. Wentworth.
and it had like the opera singer in the like Viking
Of
helmet,
course.
and she's singing she needs cash now.
Do you think that's a play on this? Is that where you're
No,
going?
I just like to bring it up. It seems fun. It
I made
seems
a
right
Proles
for
meme
this
about that.
Yeah, it was
episode.
a legit
Huh?
business Viking.
I said I made a Proles meme with that fucking thing.
Oh really?
It was like I can't remember. I'm gonna have to dig it up when we release
Yeah.
this episode, but
Gotta
it's
reread.
somewhere out there.
Resurrect that.
Resurrect that shit, much like the federalization of the banks in Iceland.
Much like
Elliot.
these ads.
Much
Right.
like these ads you just listened
Right.
to.
So in early 2006, international credit rating firms such as Standard & Poor's and Moody's, along with the international banks, the Royal Bank of Scotland and Danske Bank, expressed concern about the overheating of the Icelandic economy, the accumulation of the national debt, and the fact that the financial system itself was becoming too big to fail relative to Iceland's GDP. The response from Icelandic authorities was to dismiss these concerns by stating that use of faulty data or incompetent calculation, and even saying that they were just jealous of the success or were motivated to say such things by malicious motives. They literally said, nah, nah, boo boo.
Oh, wow.
Like, nah, you're mad.
Yeah.
They looked at Trump and they're like, we got to do it that
Pretty
way.
much.
This is going to work well.
So in the months leading up to the collapse, when credit default swaps, this is that Michael Burry play, son, if you're paying attention. Credit default swaps, the spread applying to banks had increased substantially, and this is an indicator of the risk that a bank may default. Government leaders insisted that the warnings were unwarranted and the gravy train would continue on as planned. The state was committed to protecting the trustworthiness of the banks right up until it fell down. And a speech from Prime Minister Hard to the Icelandic Chamber of Commerce on February 13th, 2008 goes as follows. End quote. In the past few weeks, the credit default swap spread on Icelandic banks has increased considerably, probably in part because international investors lack information on the actual position of the banks. This spread is in itself a serious issue because it prevents the banks from raising credit in the normal way on the markets, which are already difficult due to the credit shortage. Despite these reports and statements from the Financial Supervisor Authority, Moody's, credit sites, and others, we still see negative coverage by individual analysts and media. There, we typically see plain misrepresentation of facts, and the description of the Icelandic economic system are grossly exaggerated. It is a matter of concern that these parties do not pay attention to the detailed information which is available to everyone and shows the strong position of the banks and the Treasury. There seem to be forces at work here other than the search for the truth. And also, I just wanted to remind everybody that lying under oath or in a position of public office is a crime.
This is, I mean, in 2008, as an accountant, I cannot wrap my head around how bad they had to be for these organizations that didn't criticize anyone to be like, this is fucking bad. Like Moody's, like Anderson's tax reporting and accounting reporting and auditing for like Enron and a number of other subsidiaries, like they were not coming out and publicly saying anything bad about them in 2008 yet, or they were just starting to. So like the fact that they were going after these guys and like pointing out that they were having issues and that they were not doing things correctly is like a big deal. Like that's bad.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it stood out. Everybody was looking at it like, hey, are these numbers right coming out of Iceland? Everybody's balling over there and has been for the past 16 years.
Something about the fucking water there. I don't know. It's all from ice water. TM.
No, their water is popular because it's filtered by volcanic ash and it's awesome.
Oh yeah, they have tons of puns on shit that's like kiss ash in Iceland or something, or kick ash in Iceland. Like coffee mugs and all that kind of shit.
Good water.
Now that would have been a better campaign than Ice Save.
Well,
I'm sorry to keep harping on it.
Kick cash in Iceland. See, it's the same thing, but adding the C. It works.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
You're welcome, Iceland. My bill is in the mail.
Wow.
Yeah. So things are going well, is what you're saying.
Yes. If you believe Prime Minister Hard, things are going well. Yes. So such statements were echoed and reinforced by the state supervisory agencies. And less than 2 months before the crash, the director of Financial Supervisory Authority, this is what sort of oversaw Icelandic banks, issued a press release saying that according to stress tests, the Icelandic banks could withstand even a serious market crisis. So when Hard came out the night before the crash and stated that he was satisfied with the banks deciding to downsize by selling foreign assets and that the state need not get more involved, it was difficult for him and his cabinet to maintain credibility as the banks fell apart in the following days. Here's where we see that quotidian disruption. I think I brought that up in the first part. What that means is a change to standard of living, or basically a change to a regular way of life, or what you would consider a regular way of life. A crisis of credibility of authorities come together. So everyday life gets turned upside down and you can't trust authorities anymore because they don't have any credibility because they said everything's going to be fine and everything's not fine.
And then it fucking wasn't.
Right. This creates that rare opportunity for dissidents at odds with political leadership to organize and / mobilize people who are just as upset as they are and that agree with each other enough to come together and protest ruling authorities because their life got fucked up and they want their shit back.
Oh boy, guillotine time.
My buddy Gil coming out.
So this crisis even became a threat to Iceland's sovereignty because of the whole iSave savings account issue. The problem with that whole thing was, as I mentioned before, they're called currency loans, and they're tied to a specific currency, which in this case was the Icelandic krona. With the krona being devalued under the financial crisis, they were on the hook to indemnify all the people and businesses that had savings accounts in the UK and the Netherlands. These savings accounts amounted to the entire country's gross domestic product. The entire country.
Jesus.
So Hard's administration lost credibility and trustworthiness because he promised Icelandic citizens in those days following the crash that their domestic money was safe. But when Iceland became the first country to apply for funds from the IMF in 3 decades, they were told they would not get any help until they paid back the UK and the Netherlands because they had 2 prominent members on the board at the IMF.
But the IMF is non-political, Elliot. They would never do that.
No. They made stipulations that they had to pay it back.
When has the IMF ever been involved in politics?
They're a totally neutral organization for the betterment of all countries.
Yeah, there's actually a crazy stat that I didn't put in here, but I did read, and it was like basically said all countries that are involved in the IMF have like way more protests than countries that don't.
Who would have thunk?
Good.
Like I don't remember what the number was, but it was like, wow, that seems like a lot.
Seems bad.
Seems not ideal.
It was over 40%.
Ask Greece.
All of this caused the Icelandic people to discredit the administration by accusing the administration of not acting on behalf of the Icelandic citizens' interests and caving to pressure from foreign capitalist concerns.
No way. No one's ever caved from pressure from foreign capitalist concerns.
Why would I want more money for something that doesn't affect me personally? Like, what could go wrong?
I mean, there's a lot going on here. And I thought this was going to be a 2-parter, but we still have more to go.
Oh boy.
This might have to be a 3-parter. What do you think, guys?
You mean I have to hear about iSave again?
Yes.
The Icy Boys. Yep. We are the Icy Boys. We're here to talk. It is June. It is probably a heat wave right now. The banks in America have collapsed, but you're here listening to us talk about cold banks closing thousands of miles away. Where else would you rather be? Come on.
This is the Poor Pro's Almanac.
I'm trying
Trolling
to get to the point.
Double the
I
prol.
don't know what we're talking about anymore.
And suddenly Elliot understands why we have 4-part episodes. Congratulations.
I did it. Yay.
You're there.
We'll see you next time.
You're here. Bye, guys.